Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back into Key Time Sports. It's Key Time coming back to talk about one team that I have been talking about over the last couple of months. They are a young and up and coming team. It is the Detroit Pistons. What I'm going to say about the Detroit Pistons in this show is that over the last 10 or 12 years, we know that the Detroit Pistons have been one of the laughing stocks of the NBA. Now, over the last 12 years, they've made the playoffs twice without having a winning record. Now, one thing I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give y'all a yearly list of what has went on ever since the Detroit Pistons won their last championship. I'm going to start it off like this, and then I will get into their current roster and where I see that they are projected to go in the playoffs this coming season. So, after they won their last championship back in 2004 5 2003 4 season, they had been on a 8-year stretch before 20 well, a 12-year stretch before 2016, and they were just mediocrity to below average. You can see 05 06 or 05 06, they were 68 and 16, but lost in the Eastern Conference Finals. The season before that, 54 and 28, lost in the Eastern Conference Finals. Then in 03 04, they won the NBA Finals at 54 and 28. Then you get to 06, 07, where they were 53 and 29, lost in the Eastern Conference Finals. And then 07, 08, another year where they get all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals and lose with a 53, 59 and 23 record in 07. Then you look at from 09 to 2015, before they made the playoffs in 2016, they were just putrid. You can see it right here. 09, 39 and 43. 09 through 2010, 27 and 55. 2010, 2011, 30 and 52. 2011, 2012, 25, 41. 2012, 2013, 29 and 53, and it just gets worse from there. 2014 through 2015, 32 and 50. 2015, 2016, 44 and 38, and that was their very first playoff appearance since 2008, 2009 season. Then they lost in the first round of the Eastern Conference Finals to the Cleveland Cavaliers, led by LeBron James. So what am I saying, and what is my point here? My point is that there have only been two good teams in the last 15 years that the Detroit Pistons fan base has been proud of. And I'm going to get to like the last couple of years before this season started, it was pretty bleak. Last season, 27 game losing streak. The season before that, 17 and 65. So they haven't had much consistency or stability in Detroit. Now, this season, they have a young up and coming group. They are led by their head coaches, JB Bickerstaff. The NBA All-Star weekend just ended. 29, they are 29 and 26 right now. Currently they are sixth in the Eastern Conference right now. So if the playoffs started today, the Detroit Pistons would make the playoffs for the first time since 20 first time since 2018, 2019, where they had a 500 record, 41 and 41. Outside of that, since then, it has just been a failure to make the playoffs. This season, currently right now, they are 23. They are 3 games above 500. All you Detroit Pistons fans out there, I'm going to say this and then I'm going to get into the team rosters. All you Detroit fans out there, this is a part of the process. All day, the Detroit Pistons are the third youngest team in the NBA behind OKC and Houston. So I would not be surprised, and I'm going to get into the team roster right now. I would not be surprised if the Detroit Pistons, some way, somehow, in the first round, have an upset one of the favorites in the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, I'm going to get into the team roster right now. First off, we have Malik Beasley, Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren, Simone Faucio, Tim Hardaway Jr., Ron Harper Jr., Tobias Harris, Ronald Holland II, Jaden Ivey, Dennis Jenkins, Bobby Clintman, Paul Reed, Marcus Schauser, Dennis Schroeder, Toulouse Smith, Isaiah Stewart, Azur Thompson, Lindy Waters III. So, and they are led by Coach J.B. Bickerstaff. Now, I'm going to get into their team statistics. I'm going to say this. At the start of the season, we wasn't expecting much from the Detroit Pistons at all. I know I wasn't. But then when you look at their stats, you see Cade Cunningham, he is the leader for everybody. You see he averages 25.4 points per game. Then you have Jaden Ivory, 17.6. Malik Beasley, 16.5 points. Tobias Harris, 13.5 points. Jalen Duren, 10.8 points. Tim Hardaway Jr., 10.5. Azur Thompson, 9.3. Simone Fecchio, 6.3. I'm gonna go down a list. Ronald Holland Jr. Ronald Holland II, 6.2 points. Marcus Schauser, 6.0. Isaiah Stewart, 5.9. Dennis Schroeder, 5.7. Paul Reed, 4.3. Wendell Moore Jr., 3.2. And then everybody else on the list as a whole: Lindy Waters III, Cole Swinder, Bobby Clintman, and Dennis Jenkins all have averaged a grand total of a goose egg throughout this entire season, zero point 0.0 points. So now, let me get to their depth. Excuse me. Their depth, all of their lineup. So their starting lineup consists of Cade Cunningham, Tim Hardaway Jr., Azur Thompson, Tobias Harris, and Jalen Duren. And I'm going to tell you, their their average for their starting lineup this season is 75 points. Because let me tell you, 75 points is good for a starting backcourt. Now, most nights they don't score 75 points as their starting lineup, but that is the highest that the starting lineup for the Detroit Pistons this season has scored. Then you look at their second lineup: Dennis Schroeder, Malik Beasley, Ronald Holland II, Simone Fecchio, and Isaiah Stewart. Now, I'm gonna tell you, starters, they come out there, they set the tone. The second and third guys, they are supposed to match the tone, but there's significant amount of drop off from the second to third lineup. Now the third lineup is Marcus Sayer, Tim Hardaway Jr., Lindy Waters III, Paul Reed. That lineup has a significant drop off, and then you have the fourth lineup and the fifth lineup. Jaden Ivey, he is out for a significant amount of time. I believe that it is 2 to 3 weeks, but that will not look good because once he get back, the playoffs They will be on the Pistons will be on the cusp of the playoffs. And when you look at their record, they might not even be in the playoff conversation come late March, early April. But as of right now, you see their remaining schedule. I'm going to give you all their remaining schedule. Now, Friday, they start with San Antonio. I am going to, I am, when I talk about San Antonio in a few days, I'm going to make up a segment of San Antonio. They have another young up and coming bunch. They are the fourth youngest team in the NBA. So back to the Pistons. Their remaining schedule consists of San Antonio, Atlanta, LA, Boston, Denver, Brooklyn, Utah. They have Utah once more. Then they have Golden State, Washington twice, San Antonio one more time, and then they are dealing with their last 5 games of the season. They are dealing with some top dogs in the Western Conference with Memphis, Sacramento, New York. They are still they have an average team, and then they have Milwaukee twice in the last 3 days of the NBA season. So now so now here is my realistic factor and realistic end of the season prediction, well, remaining season prediction when it comes to the Detroit Pistons. And right now they have a 2 game lead over, excuse me, 2.5 game lead over the Orlando Magic right now. And then you have the Atlanta Hawks, Miami Heat, and the Chicago Bulls. All of those teams that I mentioned have a chance at making the playoffs. And I'm going to do some more segments when it comes to the Orlando Magic, Atlanta Hawks, and the Chicago Bulls. And I'm going to do a segment on the Milwaukee Bucks come next week. So, the Detroit Pistons, when it comes to this team, the fan base for the Detroit Pistons, they have been hungry for a team that they can be proud of. And this, let me tell you, this is the type of team, young and upcoming team, that Detroit has been wanting the past couple of years. Now, this is no slight to Monty Williams, but Monty Williams, when he came to that system, he really didn't know what he was doing. They pretty much just shipped him out of Phoenix a few years prior to him landing the job in Detroit. Now, since they fired him, got JB Bickerstaff, he has been able to make an average make a below average team look like an average team, because when you see the Detroit Pistons and what they have done throughout this season up until this point, JB Bickerstaff, that is what he has that is what he has implemented with that team. He has had Cade Cunningham, his top dog, his top scorer, and everybody else has fell in line. So get to when I get to JB Bickerstaff, he is a good coach. He had a lot of success in Cleveland, and that's why the Detroit Pistons gave him a call and hired him. So all of JB Bickerstaff's time in Cleveland, every year the Cleveland Cavaliers improve under JB Bickerstaff. His first season, they didn't make it to the playoffs, but they made it to the play-in tournament. His second season, they made it to the playoffs and played the Orlando Magic. His third season, last season before he was hired for the last season before he was hired in the offseason to the Detroit Pistons, he got the Cleveland Cavaliers to the playoffs last season, and they pretty much lost in the second round to the Boston Celtics. Now, let's see what JB Bickerstaff can do from his time in Cleveland to his time in Detroit. Now, how many more wins do I see the Detroit Pistons having this season? They have 26 games left. I could see them winning 14 of those 26 and finishing the season 14 and 12, making it to the playoffs, and whoever they will face in the first round, obviously there's a lot of things that could shake up the standings between now and the time the regular season ends. But if the playoffs started today, the Detroit Pistons, they would be playing the New York Knicks. And let me tell you about the New York Knicks. The one trepidation I have with them, and I said this last week, is their bench, because Tom Thibodeau, he doesn't emphasize the bench when it comes to their when it comes to playoff success with the New York Knicks. Now, over the past 3-4 years, the New York Knicks have been fortunate to get out of the first round twice. And those other 2 years, they pretty much laid an egg in the first round. Last year, they laid an egg in the first round to the number 4 team that is currently in the fourth spot in the Indiana Pacers last season. Now you have a team that has nothing to lose when it comes to the Detroit Pistons. And this is pretty much their first time with this group of players that they will, if everything holds up and holds together for the rest of this regular season, they are going to play the New York Knicks in the playoffs. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Detroit Pistons beat the New York Knicks in a first round 7-game playoff series, because both of these teams, they are defensive oriented. But one thing the Detroit Pistons have the upper hand on is bench production. When it comes to the New York Knicks, their bench production has been hovering over 18, 20 points throughout the entirety of this season up until this point. Then you have the Detroit Pistons, sometimes throughout the games in this season, their bench has put up 25, 30 points. One game against the Cleveland Cavaliers early in the season, their bench put up 40 points. And that's what you need in a playoff stretch. Now this is going to be my closing remarks when it comes to the Detroit Pistons. The Detroit Pistons are going to be a force to be reckoned with in the next 5 years. Well, for the next 5 years. This season is just their experimental season. And when they gain playoff experience this season, if they are fortunate enough to make the playoffs, this is going to be an experience for them. Then they come back next season and they can pretty much hang with some of the best of them. They can hang with some of the best of them now. They can hang with Indiana, Milwaukee, Orlando, Atlanta, and Miami. Now, Miami, I did their remaining season outlook a couple weeks ago. Miami, they are going to drop, while the Detroit Pistons are having an uptick in everything that they are doing. Now, one thing about the Detroit Pistons, when I see their players on their roster right now, the players that I mentioned earlier in the show, they are going to have to increase their level of play. When it comes to these guys right here, they are going to be X factors in the playoffs. Ashur Thompson, y'all see his average right now. Simone Fecchio, y'all see his average right now. He is going to have to increase his level of play and level of efficiency when the playoffs come. Now, everybody who's out there who is a betting man or woman, do not sleep on the Detroit Pistons, because the Detroit Pistons, if they get into the playoffs, they have the potential of shaking up everything in the first round and knocking whoever they play, but as of right now, knocking the New York Knicks out of the playoffs in the first round. And you can take that, book it to the bank. I want everybody to keep this sound bite, because at the end of the season, when we look back on everything that I said going into the playoffs, this is one thing that I want y'all to keep in mind, because the Detroit Pistons are here to stay. And with that, though, that is my remaining season outlook when it comes to the Detroit Pistons. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, click the notification bell to get notified of all of my reaction videos, shows, and other content. Please follow, like, share Key City Sports on Instagram. We are about to experience an expansion over on Key City Sports. So, everybody, I want everybody to be a part of this ride, because this ride is going to continue, and we are about to expand and reach new horizons that we have never seen before, not only on Key City Sports, but over here on Key Town Sports. Everybody, watch, just watch out for the excitement, because we are going to be doing big things between now and the end of the year. And the last thing I want to tell y'all, remember, the key is always on time. And for all of you, for my Instagram audience, remember, doors are always open when you have keys to the city. See you all tomorrow. And remember one last thing, the key is always on time.